Good morning. If I've not met you yet, I'm Mike. I'm one of the pastors here. Glad to be with you. We are in the middle of a series on Sermon on the Mount, What If Jesus Was Serious? Sorry, is that better? It turns out that the microphones don't love me. I think it's the beard, and my wife likes the beard, so it's staying. So the microphones are just going to get over it. All right. So we've been doing this series on Sermon on the Mount, What If Jesus Was Serious, taking the book written by Skye Jethani. And I don't know about you, but this whole text, this whole series, this whole kind of thinking through these different places is really challenging. And I think that if we're honest with ourselves, when we start studying Scripture, there are places of Jesus that we really like and we want to gravitate towards. There are some that really gravitate towards the justice pieces of Jesus, where he stands up for those who cannot stand up for themselves, or those places where he shows tremendous compassion and mercy and love and grace. And we like those parts of Jesus. Maybe we just like the baby Jesus, kind of like Ricky Bobby, right? We want the baby Jesus in the manger and those moments with the angels and the shepherds. And I think that when we start really investigating some of the things he teaches, it's a both-and proposition, where he goes after people, and yet he also shows tremendous grace and mercy. And as we read through the Sermon on the Mount, as we've been working our way through this, there are places where he is challenging the religious leaders over and over and over again, and he's using the crowd to do that. And he's challenging the crowd too and saying, hey, I want you to look at these super religious people. It's the part out of Matthew 5:20 where it says, unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees. Well, the Pharisees were the most religious people of the day. They were those that everybody looked to and thought, boy, they have it together. And so Jesus starts unpacking all the ways they don't have it together. That it's an outward expression of faith. It's not an internal response. And he goes after the crowd to say, don't stop there. Don't stop by how it looks. I want you to go to how it is here in your heart. So that's really what we've been working our way through. Last week, Christy talked about what if Jesus was joking, borrowing from Sean from earlier on in our series. And she said, if Jesus was joking, then we should all run around and shout out our piety. Hey, look how great I am. Everybody see me? Woo! Man, I did some Jesus stuff today. Let me post about it on Instagram or Facebook, right? Buy for ourselves any treasure we see. Hey, you want it? You buy it, right? Well, there's no debt in eternity, so take all the debt you want, right? This approach of going, whatever I want, I'll get. And then abandoning peace, pursuing self-sufficiency. I don't need anybody. I can do this all on my own. And if you don't believe me, just watch me. I can disappear for months at a time, and I'll just Facebook. I'll just do Instagram. I'll just do social media. I'll Twitter, right? I'll tweet. And that'll just be my way of engaging with the world. And we do those things. If Jesus was joking, then all those things would be okay. But he wasn't. And in a seriousness, what Jesus is actually asking us to do is to let others think about us whatever they want. To really lay down our desire for reputation, our desire to be seen in a certain way. To lay down the image. That if he's really serious, then we choose lives that are sacrificial in love and in generosity and in faith. And if he's really serious, then we seek his kingdom first, not ours. We're about his business, not our business. This week we're going to head into judging and asking and blessing out of Matthew 7. And I specifically want to talk around the idea of awareness. What's our awareness like, and how aware are we? And when I mean awareness, I really mean both our self-awareness and our awareness of others. So I don't know if you've heard the term emotional intelligence. It's something I ran across about 20 years ago. Somebody introduced it to me and said it was actually something I needed a lot of help with. So I said, okay. I read a book called Primal Leadership. It's not written from a faith perspective, but the idea is to really evaluate what the kind of things do you notice about the way you respond to moments and how you see things, and what do you notice about others. And I'm going to share a little quote from here out of the book. Emotional intelligence is the capability of individuals to recognize their own and others people's emotions. Up to this point, I thought all emotions were anger, right, as a guy. I went, well, I'm angry. Well, that's not really the main emotion. That's the secondary emotion, what's going on underneath. So it's the capability to recognize their own and other people's emotions, to discern between feelings and label them appropriately, to use emotional information to guide thinking and behavior, and to manage and or adjust emotions to adapt environments or achieve one's goal. So let me give an example of this. My daughter Evelyn, today is her 14th birthday. Yeah. We're not singing happy birthday to her. I told her we wouldn't do that. First of all, because I can't sing. So but you're welcome to go tell her happy birthday when you see her. If you see her wandering around, you can give her a high five or birthday hug or whatever is appropriate. All right. So we were having this conversation yesterday. My mother-in-law calls, Christy's mom calls yesterday, and she was supposed to come out this week. And she has a younger sister who is in hospice care. And the end is near. And so, my mother-in-law she's grieving. Evelyn's grandmother is grieving. But Evelyn's thinking about the fact that Grandma promised a birthday card and some money, right? So it's that moment where, right, I don't expect a kid to have emotional intelligence. But as an adult, I have just enough that I went, hey, maybe this isn't the right moment to have that conversation with Grandma. Actually, Grandma was incredibly gracious and had the conversation anyways because she loves her granddaughter. But it was that ability to think about those moments and go, maybe this isn't the right moment to ask that question, right? Spouses, you ever walk in and see your counterpart and you look at them and you go, the question I'm going to ask them, wait, right? If you haven't, you've never been married. So those are those moments, right? So we all want others to be sensitive to us. But there's a challenge here in how aware are we of our own stuff and how aware are we of others. And what Jesus is talking about as we get into this text, I think it all has to do with self and other awareness. How do we live life with others, okay? All right, so let's dive in. We're going to go to Matthew 7. Let me pray real quick, and then we'll hit Matthew 7, 1 through 12 is what we're covering today. So, Lord, you are so good. I pray that you would speak to our hearts, speak to our minds. Lord, that you would go past our intellect and get to our souls. That, Lord, there would be something in today that you would want to speak to us. So I just pray that we would have Holy Spirit attuned ears to recognize that moment you are speaking and what that looks like for each of us individually. I pray that for everyone in this room and everyone joining us online. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. So let me give you a quick word about judgment because we're going to talk about judgment quite a bit today. There's 2 Greek words for judge in the New Testament, just like there is in English. The first word really means discerning between things, as in I judge the red car to be in better condition than the blue car, right? So if you go to a car lot and you look at 2 cars and you're discerning, you're judging which one you think is in better shape. The second meaning of judge is to sit in a place of superiority to condemn. Now, that sounds really harsh, and it actually kind of is, but we need judges in our society, correct? Our legal system has judges. They are in those roles because they have demonstrated over the years, generally, the ability to be impartial and to be able to take all the facts in and judge the merits of a case, right? That's what we need judges for in courts of law. The problem is that we, as humans, don't always know all the situation when we start getting in the middle of judging. So that's the second meaning of judgment. This is the sort of judgment Jesus warns against within the church. So we have been going through, we love these different sketches by Scott Gittani. So here's another one. The different definitions. Definition A is to discern. There's apples and there's oranges. Definition B is to really draw a line between. Apples are less than oranges, which, by the way, I totally disagree. I am an apple fan, not an orange fan. But there's a thing of where you're saying one's different than the other versus one's better than the other, right? So this is the big difference. Scott Gittani in his book writes, Jesus meant for us to avoid acts of discernment. It would render all of his teachings, not to mention all of Scriptures, meaningless. In other words, don't turn off your brain. I'm not saying don't ever walk into the world and go, yeah, I judge that meal is probably healthier than that meal for me, right? I'm still going to choose the one that's not healthiest for me because I like it, but I can judge them, right? And then he goes on, he does not want us to condemn others, to pass final judgment upon them, or declare another person to be irretrievably guilty. Such devaluing of a person is precisely what Jesus' enemies did to him. It is the way of the world, not the way of God's kingdom. So let me say a real quick word about this. I believe that every sin we commit all falls from the first sin, where we try to be God. I think that every sin we commit, I think every place where we run into places, it's where we're trying to do things our way instead of according to God's way. And we're going to talk about parenting and God as a parent in a few minutes, but I do think there's a challenge here that when we step in and we start judging people God created in his image, that we're actually judging God. We're judging our Creator. So the next time you find yourself wanting to judge somebody, remember that God created that person. That his desire is that they would have a redemptive life. It really goes back to some of the things that Greg was talking about a few weeks ago about loving your enemies, or those we perceive to be our enemies. That challenge of, who am I to call enemy who God has called child? Oh, that doesn't hit you right here. I don't know what will. There's a place in all of us that we go, it's so easy. It's so easy to get after other people. By the way, the one place where it is okay to judge people is between Monument and Castle Rock on I-25. Just saying, that would be okay. It's very impersonal. You can judge the car. Yeah, that Honda, what do they think they're doing, right? I mean, okay, I'm just still not okay. All right, we'll start at verse 1 out of Matthew 7. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at a speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when at the time there's a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will be able to see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Verse 6, do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces. Oh, all right, we'll do the rest of it later. Let's break this down real quick. So let's start 1 and 2 again. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. From the same way you judge others, you will be judged. With the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Jesus is saying if you are going to get in the business of judging others, it's actually going to bring more judgment on you. This is so similar to the teaching about forgiveness. If you forgive others before your Father in heaven, the Lord will forgive you. There's this piece of going, by the way, it turns out that there's so much that has to do with the way we love others and we respond to others. It turns out the greatest commandment really is genius. This picture of life with God and life with others. How do we do that well? How do we love other people well? Or at least not judge them well, right? Those seeking to judge will have to answer for getting in God's position. We're becoming like God. And when we point to this place, this idea of a measuring scale was something very common in that world. It was something a lot of the religious leaders would use to teach as a way of saying, hey, this is the way they saw the world. Remember, they saw the world too as the world had a finite amount of resources. So if you were doing well financially or doing well family-wise, it meant that you were doing well before the Lord because God was blessing you. So he was raising you up. And other people who were not doing as well, then people wondered what sin they had committed. God's kingdom and economy do not work that way. God's resources are infinite. His desire to bless is infinite. The problem is we start thinking in terms of material resources, and he thinks in terms of spiritual one. What does it look like to be totally in sync with him? So most of the leaders would have agreed with this outwardly, but inside they would have had these thoughts of, well, what goes around comes around. Anybody ever heard that one? Yeah, I might have said that about a half a dozen times yesterday. Anyhow, no, I'm just kidding. And then they take delight in the consequence of others. That's this place where we go, if something's going hard for other people, even people who have cursed you, even people who have spoken ill of you, if you find yourself finding a little delight, maybe the Lord's trying to challenge something. Maybe he's trying to get at this heart thing. It goes, man, they're still my people. Why can't we pray for them? Why can't we love them? We'll talk about boundaries later, okay? So verse 3 through 5, I'm actually going to get my actual Bible for this one. Can I do that? I'm going to read this one in the Bible because I really like the way this reads out of the actual scripture. Let's see if I can put my glasses on so I can read this well. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention? I missed something. Hold on, let me read that again. This is really hard to read with one eye. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there's a plank in your own eye? Does anybody understand what he's talking about here? You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you'll be able to see clearly, easy for him to say, to remove the speck from your brother's eye. This is the way we walk around the world, spiritually speaking. It's ridiculous, isn't it? Absolutely ridiculous. Actually, this plank doesn't do it justice. The word for plank actually stood for like this big, massive beam. And I'm going to tell you, reading that with one eye, even with my reading glasses on, it's really hard. This is what we do, spiritual blindness. It's places where we don't even recognize how spiritually blind we are. We can't even see the stuff right in our own face. And then we're squinting, we're looking around, trying to figure out how to see things. Hey, that little thing you did. Whew. Awareness. What is going on in your own life? If you find yourself going, man, that other person over there, maybe the very next question should be, God, what in me are you highlighting? What's something that's holding me back from life with you, with fullness? Christy is the queen of props, and so I thought I would try one. It was kind of lopsided. It's hard to hold it in place. Anyhow. All right, so the problem for us as people who have claimed to be followers of Jesus, one of the reasons I don't like labels is because the word Christian has become synonymous with judging. It's just become synonymous. And Sean talked a few weeks ago about hypocrites, about the world expects us to be better. That's why they call us hypocrites. They actually expect when we say we're Christians to be a little bit better. But this idea that, man, the hypocrites and the judging, they all go together in this place of, they are God's creation. Other human beings are God's creation. God knows the number of hairs on their head. His desire is that they would have life to the fullness. It is not your place. It's not my place. And thank the Lord it's not. And one of the things is we can't control the rest of the world. You can't, as I tell my kids all the time, the only person in this world you can control is yourself sometimes, right? The only person we could even have any shot of controlling is ourselves. So let's start with what's here. Okay? All right. By the way, Jesus is absolutely hammering the religious elite. Those who were sitting in the crowd who are religious are realizing that. The real irony, too, is I find myself going, at this point in the message, nobody should be judging anybody. Right? I mean, he's gotten after pretty much every major sin you can think of and then said it's not just about your actions, it's also about your heart. Yeah, it's not just about committing murder, it's about committing murder in your heart. It's not just about committing adultery, it's about committing adultery in your heart. Almost everybody in the crowd should have at this point been going, man, I'm a loser, right? I need you, Jesus. I'm a loser. This is the reality. He's in this moment. If he's challenging, he's inviting people into something more. Verse 6, do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under your feet and turn and tear you to pieces. We're going to go back to the awareness piece here. I think what Jesus is saying here is he's really comparing the religious leaders to dogs and pigs, which is not a good sign, right? The dogs were the scavengers of that day. The pigs were forbidden to be eaten. The pigs ate everything. They were gross. Thank goodness for Acts 10 so that we can eat bacon. So if you don't know what Acts 10 story is, just go read it. It's the one that gives us permission to eat bacon. I'm super thankful for that text. But pigs, and don't throw your stuff before pigs and through dogs. This challenge of, hey, not everybody's ready to hear your wisdom. Just because you know something doesn't mean you need to share it in this moment. I.e., what is your self-awareness like? What is your emotional intelligence like? Are you paying attention to what's happening to people around you? Maybe this isn't the right moment. We're going to get into when do we correct somebody in a little bit, but I just will say it's at the speed of relationship. You can't correct somebody you don't know well. They don't know you well. It's impossible. Correcting somebody that you don't know well just feels like somebody beating them up. All right? So let's move on. Let's go to the second part of this, 7 through 12. And ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks the door will be opened. Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone, or if he asks for fish, will give him a snake? If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. All right, we're going to break this down in 3 little parts here. Ask, we'll start with 7 and 8. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds. And the one who knocks, the door will be open. All right, you read this text, and this feels pretty clear that this is a response in the way we come to God with prayer, right? In other words, the picture of we go to God and we ask for what we need. We don't try to manipulate. We don't try to convince him. It's not like you're going to sell God on giving you more than you asked for, right? It's this really clear picture, and it also fits within the Lord's Prayer that came just a couple weeks ago, a little bit earlier. It also fits with him talking about God giving good gifts. But Skye Jatani argues, and I don't think I'd ever seen this before, but I agree with him. He thinks this has to do with our relationship with one another as well. Because we're just talking about judging. We're talking about the way we engage with other people. We're talking about the way in which we see the things that other people do and don't do, and the places where we try to figure out what are the right moments to share, what things should we share. If we share things that are inappropriate, it's like throwing your pearls before swine. So this beautiful picture of this life with God also includes a life with others. It does go back to the greatest commandment again and again and again. So what's your relationship like with others? Do you have something you need from others, or you need help from others? Are you willing to ask? By the way, we are terrible receivers. I don't know where it came along that somewhere in our society that Christians have to be, no, we have all of our stuff together all the time and nobody can ever help us because we're perfect. That's ridiculous. We need to learn how to receive. Matter of fact, some of the best ways for us to actually walk out our faith, to be salty and lit, is to actually ask for help, to be vulnerable. Let's try that on for a little bit. Let people in. But Mike, they're not believers. It doesn't matter. They're just humans. God created them. Let people in. Live life. The way we can be salty and light, salty and lit. My son taught me a new word this week. It's called bussin'. That's bussin', bro. I used it in a sentence, so I'll just have to tell him later. He asked me if I used it last night. I told him I forgot. It's bussin', bro. All right, so the way we live life with others matters. That we actually are vulnerable. And too often we approach other people in our relationship. Ask, seek, knock. Be clear with what you're asking for. How often do we go to somebody and ask for part of what we need? And then when they say yes, we go, so you're willing to help me like move a couple boxes. Do you think you'd be willing to also help me move my old house? Just the load up part, right? Oh, you're willing to do that too? Sweet. Can you help me unload two at the other? Just ask for the whole thing. Just ask. But we have to have relationship with others. And this is where it's hard, is that we have partial relationships where we partially ask. When we know people, we just ask them. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. By the way, if you ask me to help you move, I'll be glad to come help you move. You know what role I'm going to play? I'm going to be the director. Show me the house. Show me where all the rooms are. I'll tell people where they need to go. Right? Anyhow, but let's just ask. All right. For which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Maybe. Or if he asks for fish, will give him a snake? Definitely not. I'm scared of snakes. If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give? I need to put my glasses back on with my plank. How much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? Man, our God wants to give good gifts. His desire for you is to have what you need. And here's the challenge. We get so caught up in what we want that we don't even know what we actually need anymore. Back to self-awareness. What is going on in your own soul? What do you actually need? What's in your heart? And by the way, a good father sometimes tells his kids no. Because he knows that the very thing they've asked for actually will hurt them and others. So sometimes the answer is no. And the worst part is that he doesn't always tell us why. Right? So we just go. I can't tell how many times we've told our kids no at times. And they go, but can you tell me why? I'm not sure you'll understand this at 11 years old, but let's try. Sometimes the answer is no. That's what it means to be a good father. All right, and then lastly, so if in everything do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. So this beautiful picture of in everything that people, in other words, as we engage and we live life with others, don't just do what they deserve. Don't treat them back the way that you think they ought to be treated. Treat them back the way you would like to be treated. So there's the bracelets, the WWJD, what would Jesus do? So I thought we should make some bracelets that say WWIW. What would I want? Start treating people like you would want to be treated. For those of you who enjoy pain, maybe you shouldn't find a different one. What would others want, right? I mean, maybe you find a different bracelet. But this picture of, actually, Jesus is brilliant, going, this isn't just about quid pro quo. This isn't just about how we treat others the way we think they deserve to be treated. We give them the measure of what we think. Now we're back to the judging piece. He's actually saying, treat them the way you would want to be treated. What's that look like? Now, I'm going to go back to the third part of the greatest commandment real quick. I think one of the things we really struggle with, and it's one of the most under-talked about parts of the greatest commandment, is that there's a requirement there to love yourself. Love others as yourself. It's implied. God created you. He created you in such a way that he knows exactly how he made you. And his desire is that you would find life and freedom in him. And with that comes this place where you start to accept yourself as the way he created you. Should we change? Should we grow? Yes, there's all kinds of scripture about transforming, about growth, about the way that God desires for us to become more and more like him. That this whole life is a journey of faith. The desire is to become as much like Jesus as we can be in this place, knowing we're never going to get there. If we get to that space, then he doesn't need us. But this place of going, what does it look like to actually go, God, I love the way you made me. It's not the way I would have picked. I would have preferred some ears that didn't quite stick out quite so much or whatever. We all have those places where we go, man, I wish things were a little different. But God looks at us and goes, that's my creation. That's my child. How can we learn how to love what God created? To love ourselves. Now, I'm not talking about narcissism. That goes way too far. I'm talking about this beautiful place of going, man, I just accept that this is the way God made me. It's okay. I'll take it. Thank you, Lord, for the very breath I have. All right. Skajatani says, when our Lord says no to our desires, it's because he loves us too much to say yes. He wants to offer us something far more valuable. He offers us himself. The goal of this journey of faith, this goal of this life, is not to have everything we think we need or everything we think we want, but more of God. And God loves us so much, right? John 3:16, one of the most famous verses in the Bible, that he sent Jesus to die on the cross for our sins so that we could have full relationship with him, so we could receive his good gifts as a thankful child. It's a beautiful picture. So how do we finish this? I think there's an inside-out approach Jesus is using. The inside approach is two pieces. One is seeking self-awareness. There's a place here where we're being invited into this journey, this idea of looking inside honestly. One of the questions I used to get asked all the time was, I'm having a hard time hearing God's voice. How do you know it's God's voice? Well, I have two great questions to ask when you're trying to figure out if it's God's voice. One of the first questions is, God, what is one thing about me that's keeping me from you, from more of you? First of all, the enemy's never going to say, well, it's this sin pattern that you have going on in your life that's holding you back from your life with Jesus, right? The enemy's not ever going to answer that question. So whatever voice starts popping in your head, that's the Lord, right? I can promise you, if you start looking at that thing and going, that's, God, what's one thing that needs to change? Whew, that's called seeking self-awareness. By the way, the second question is, Lord, who's one person I should be praying for? Again, the enemy's not going to advocate prayer. So the enemy's not going to come along and say, yeah, you should definitely pray for A, B, C, D, E, yeah, that sort of thing. All right. And then another good way is to ask questions about ourselves to those who know us well. How do you receive me? How do I come across? I had a good friend this week tell me that I say matter of fact a lot. I'm like, no, I don't. I went back and looked at some old messages. I say it a lot. Like it's become so much a pattern of my speaking that I don't even realize I say it. It's rather funny, matter of fact. That one was on purpose. I actually know I said that one. It's interesting, though, the things that we just become blind to, we don't even see. That's the plank in our own eye. Ask others who love us to help us think through those things. And by the way, ask in a good moment, right? Where everybody's in a calm, happy place or whatever. Maybe over your morning cup of coffee, or maybe after your first cup of coffee, all right? All right. And then the one other thing I want to say about this piece real quick is beware. If you're feeling tremendous shame and condemnation and guilt right now, that is the enemy. That is not God's heart. God's heart is to bring life, to bring freedom, to bring fulfillment. God doesn't want you to live with regret. He actually wants to bring you out of that stuff. His desire is you have life. And then the other inside piece is that people matter more than being right. I grew up in a home where that wasn't necessarily the case. Thank goodness there wasn't Google in my household growing up. Because being right was held at a really high value. But people matter more than being right. And sometimes being right's not that important. It's okay just to kind of go, man, let me have a little bit of awareness right now, a little bit of emotional intelligence. This is the moment just to shut up. Just to be present. Not to say I would have done it differently when somebody's in pain. That's not the moment to say, hey, can I give you some suggestions? No. Nope. Just be present. People matter more. Stop standing in judgment. Skajatani, when we condemn another, we are declaring they have no worth. They do not matter to us or God. This impulse to judge is often a way of elevating ourselves by devaluing others. Boy, our ability to judge others comes a lot from our own insecurity. Going back again to love yourself. Take who you are, who God made you to be. Learn how to receive that peace. It's not worrying about what God's journey is with other people. All right, the outside piece. Live at peace with and for others. It's so important to treat others with respect. This goes back to asking things. Stop manipulating. Stop trying to sell people on stuff. No scheming. Just be honest and ask. The other part of this is that we should live in a way that our lives benefit others. Like, what are the things that, as you think about the things you want to accomplish, or the things that you're dreaming about, or the things that are God, that you feel like God's putting in your heart, one of the ways to filter that is what I think God's calling me to, what these dreams are, will they actually benefit others? Or when McManus asks in his book, Wide Awake, what are you supposed to do that will benefit others? And then later on he says, but be careful your dreams don't become somebody else's nightmares. This is the challenge, right? This place of going, man, I had this really great dream where the whole world serves me and I live on an island and nobody ever bothers me. Well, that probably doesn't really benefit others. That only benefits me. That's probably not the Lord. Darn, I'm going to have to get a new dream. All right, so, and then lastly is this idea of how do we then actually walk out when it's judge? How do we know when we're supposed to judge? Well, so the good news is that I don't know that we absolutely do. What I would say, it moves at the speed of relationship. When somebody invites you in and says, hey, there's this thing going on. You got any perspective for me? That's not judging. That's an opportunity to give some wisdom, to give some thoughts, to ask some questions. Hey, have you thought about this? Hey, maybe this would have helped, or maybe that would help in the future. But those places of letting people invite us into those journeys rather than pushing our way in. I had a friend, pastor I served with once years ago when I was on staff at Smoky Hill Vineyard, actually in the early 2000s. And I remember one time I had made another person cry because I told them the truth. And I had this reputation for telling people the truth and making them cry. And I, stop laughing, Carrie. So, and I had this other pastor come to me and go, hey, Mike, man, the way you do this is like surgery without anesthesia. Like, you'll take care of the problem. You're cutting out the stuff. The cancer's gone, but nobody will ever want to go through that process again. And I was listening to him, I was nodding my head, yeah, okay. And then he goes, my problem is that I give all this anesthesia. In other words, I'm really loving, and then I'll never actually do the surgery. And I went, huh. I said, so I can be nicer, can you be more honest? And he said, that is what I'm talking about right there. That's the stuff. So somehow inside thoughts, right? Man, when it's time to correct stuff, there's got to be relationship or else it never comes across loving. And you don't need to know when those moments are. We'll help you figure them out as a church. But if within your family, if there's times to correct things with family members or things, it's got to be done in love. It's got to be done in this place of care and concern. I call it the inverted Oreo approach, right? Lots of soft stuff, like a triple stuff on one side. How much I love you, how much I appreciate you. These are the amazing ways. Hey, can I point out one thing that's really creating friction in our family? There's the hard cookie. Then you follow it with a quadruple stuff after that, right? Just be loving, be kind, be nice. 1 Corinthians 5, 12 through 13. Sometimes there's correction needed in community. Paul says, what business is of mine is it to judge those outside the church? We're not supposed to judge those who do not call themselves believers. Are you not to judge those inside? Yes, but let the leaders of the church help you process that, right? God will judge those outside. In this case, he's saying, expel the wicked person from among you. There's a case where a guy is sleeping with a stepmom, and the church is showing unsanctified grace. They're trying to show all this love and receiving and allowing him to be where he is and not actually calling out the sin. Hey, it's okay to, at some point to go, man, I love you, but this behavior is killing you and others. There are healthy moments to do that. It has to be done in relationship. All right? So what do we do with all this? Worship team, if you guys want to come back up. I have a couple thoughts. One is that I think there's an invitation the Lord is giving us right now of going, as you look around and you find yourself in places where you're going, man, that looks terrible. I don't want to be like that. Thank you, Lord, you didn't make me a sinner like that person, right? I mean, those sorts of things that start to roll up in our head. I think the challenge is always to start right here. Right here. What is God doing in me? What is the Lord challenging? Now, here's the thing, is we can go way too far the other way and we start feeling all this guilt and condemnation, all this shame. No. What's the thing the Lord is calling out and saying, hey, I want more of you. If you would lean into this one thing, that's the inside approach. Lean into that. God, what are you dialing up in me? And then, how then can I respond in a loving way towards others? How can I show your salt and life in the places where I work, the places where I live, and my family? In the places I engage with, in my small group? How can I be a better representation, a better image bearer of you to others? And sometimes that just means we keep our mouth closed. We let that stuff sort. We wait for people to invite us into moments rather than go rushing in. It's just called being loving towards others. There is a world right now, everywhere. It's not out there anymore. It's everywhere. Everyone has been through 2 years of trauma. Everybody has got all kinds of stuff being stirred up. There's all kinds of mental health, anxiety issues. There's other health. There's unintended consequences of other health issues that are rising up right now. The world as a whole is on edge. We could be the people of peace that when we walk into different rooms, into different moments, we could be thoughtful, loving, aware of the others around us and bring our non-anxious presence, our best version of Jesus to those moments. So I'm going to lead us to a prayer, and what I'd like you to do in this prayer time is, if there's a place where the Lord's bringing up, as I've started talking, you found yourself start thinking about other people, just take them to the Lord. Either forgive them or ask God to forgive you for judging them, whatever you need to do, or maybe it's both. If you found yourself going, I wish so-and-so could hear this, then you need to also forgive them and then ask the Lord to forgive you, right? And then let's allow the Lord to come and minister his peace, and let's invite the Lord to think about who it is we're supposed to be praying for in this season. All right? So, Holy Spirit, come even more in your presence. Even more. Even more. I pray, Lord, that those places we just ask, Lord, you forgive us for those people those folks that we have judged. Forgive us for the people that we have harbored bitterness against. Forgive us for judging, for being in the place of you. And then if you're so bold, pray the prayer, Lord, what's one thing about me that's holding me back from more full relationship with you? And who am I supposed to be praying for in this season?